Hello, friends. Again, I have an incredibly adventurous yet absolutely true story of the Baron of Brown Springs and myself during our freshman year of college. It'd be a good long while before we experienced any monsters. No craziness such as the stray dog, which was actually a man, which ended up being our principal in disguise, attacking people in our hometown. Fortunately for us, Wild was television star's Paladin, the British gentleman gunslinger for hire. The rifleman and quick draw McGraw showed up to kill the cannibalistic educator and saved our town. Baron was dating a girl who was taking the law class at our university, but it was a little obvious that she'd been filled to the brim by countless demonic entities. That simply just meant he was always too busy to do anything except whatever it was she wanted him to, so I joined one of the fraternities the school offered to occupy my time. I occasionally saw Doss as he followed this girl, smiling with some weird white film covering his eyes. The frat was okay at first, but then they wanted us all to kiss a real human skull, sleep in a casket with a skeleton, and other spooky stuff. One day during the English class, my parents paid for me to pass. Instead of going to shoot out dormitory windows as I'd usually do, I went to the library to study about my frat brother's history, and would you know it, you're sitting with this container for the spirit of Isabel was the Baron. He stared at her, smiling, as she read to him from some strange-looking book that smelled like a dead squirrel. Its pages were brown and looked to be written in some type of liquid made from glowing blood. I just wrote it off as her being a dirty hippie chick looking for some dumb enlightenment. Ignoring her, I pulled my shooting gimmick on my old pal Doss. I tell you folks, it felt like old times. Stand and deliver, you silly old Mr. Clean Sucker. This shooting gimmick likes to sing songs. First up, paid the cost to be the boss, you jive turkey. The Baron looked over at me with these unfamiliar eyeballs. The white film made him look like he had that milk and magnesia stuff on them. He muttered something about, isn't she great, Sleepy Joe? I then turned my attention to this dirty hippie chick who was surprisingly better looking than I remembered. Then it hit me she was a succubus. I pointed my gimmick at her, demanding she remain still as I tried talking sense into my old pal. Danny, Baron, you gotta snap out of it. This beautiful and treacherous harlot is nothing more than Delilah to your Samson. See, Doss, I remembered that from the Bible cartoons. Having never seen Doss in this state before, I began to become anxious and almost laid down to take a nap, seeing that my personal defense mechanism had been triggered. But I had a great idea. I plugged her right in the belly, which seemed to snap the Baron out of his dazed and confused state. He looked at me and his girlfriend before, wait, you guessed it, Bible cartoon stuff. He raised hell and told me, thou shalt do no murders, but there wasn't any time for the rigmarole, so I knocked him out with the butt of my gimmick. I placed a mask made out of a part torn from the girl's letterman's jacket before I hoisted Doss onto my shoulder and disappeared into the shadows of campus. I took him to the wrestling room and placed him on the mat to recover from his head being buffered by my shooting gimmick. I waited patiently for him to wake up on the other side of the room. As Doss enjoyed his nap, I played the Godfather of Soul's latest album. I happily sang along, stating how I also would say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. The beautiful melody must have eased him into consciousness, because he woke up without screaming or raising hell. Hey, Joe, where's the girl? Is she really dead? He was strangely unemotional, but I waited a full minute before engaging him in conversation or getting close enough for him to do something physical to me. The more I thought about it, the more nervous I would get, until finally I began to weigh the pros and cons of my actions. I cocked the hammer of my gimmick back and coldly aimed it straight at the Baron. I demanded he explain why he had milk and magnesia eyes, as well as who that succubus law student was and how she went from an unassuming, bland-looking hippie to suddenly good-looking. He calmly approached me as he explained how he met her on campus, and they dated only a week or so before his memory got hazy. Foolishly, I let him within arm's reach of my shooting gimmick. Just as I was afraid if he used some type of move I assumed he'd learned from the sidekick of the Green Hornet. The surprise was that he dismantled the shooting gimmick with lightning quickness and handed it back to me. He said that he no longer studies Old Testament wrath and war, but the New Testament peace and forgiveness, the captain of his salvation. Thinking it a trick, I immediately began reassembling the shooting gimmick. He watched me and explained his terrible ordeal with the girl he referred to as Carmela. Sleepy Joe, this girl was the bee's knees. He then went on to explain how she taught him about spiritual things that he didn't know prior, and how she had introduced him to green medicine and some type of pizza toppings that he'd find in the pasture across from our school's campus after a decent rain. He went on to say how these pizza toppings grew wild beneath cow shit and sometimes under a house. Before I could load more bullets into my shooting gimmick, the Baron nervously motioned to something behind me towards the door to the wrestling room. I quickly turned around to find nothing at all. Now extremely confused, I turned back to the Baron just in time to see him placing my gun behind his own back. Baron then said he believes this girl was some kind of demonical charged energy vampire that takes away someone's life first. He went on to explain his belief that she uses hypnosis of some kind to make them compliant. Well, Doss, no one told you to start dating some demon-filled queen of the damned like that hippie chick. Doss quickly pulled out some contraption that I'd soon find out was something called a pineapple grenade. Sleepy Joe, this will take the wine out of her evil selves. He went on to say how a few weeks after they began dating, he went with her to visit her parents at their place on the wicked West Coast. They were pretty nice for the most part, but they are a part of some crazy church. Not as bad as your old false devil church, Sleepy Joe, but they are strange people. After hearing all this, I began to understand that the Baron had indeed gone through quite an ordeal with this oddball hippie chick. Well, Baron, you're in the clear now. I plugged her like a leaky bucket of buttermilk. This did nothing to console Doss, and he began slowly walking back and forth, muttering to himself what I assume was quotes from Bible cartoons, but this time I was wrong. He was building a trap inside of his own mind. I tried to listen and decipher his ramblings until the door to the wrestling room flung open. Thinking it was the fuzz looking for the library shooter, I jumped through the second-story window without even turning around to look. I half expected my old friend to yell obscenities out of the window or jump out himself, but instead there was nothing at all. I thought that he might be in a spot of danger, but remembered that he had confiscated my shooting gimmick. The crazy Batman karate move he used to take it made him more than capable of breaking someone in half. After a few minutes, without hearing a struggle of any kind, I simply just walked to my dorm. My roommate was a real buffoon, but he was never around, so I wasn't too worried about him saying anything about me coming in late and disturbing his rest. I was walking through campus the next day, contemplating where Baron went and how to find him when accidentally I bumped into someone. You guessed it, folks, the very same girl from the library, Dee's vampire girlfriend, and the very girl that I had deposited into her bread basket. I politely excused myself before sprinting into the breezeway that led to my dorm. I thought I saw a glimpse of the succubus hippie girl standing in the clock tower campus, but she was gone before I could focus my eyes on myself, wishing I had some of the Baron's father's medicine that he kept in his garage. Suddenly I heard the voice of the Baron muttering in the crowd of students. I was overcome with relief until again the girl appeared in the clock tower with her eyes glowing red as she watched Baron walk about the campus courtyard writing in his handy-dandy notebook. Baron! Hey, Baron! Are you okay, old pal? That woman is a goddamn phantom of the opera, or a ghost. She is a Dracula monster. Hey, Baron over here. She may be a witch too. You, Baron, it's Joe. Shut up, Sleepy Joe. Keep your voice down. I'm fine. What about you? You jumped out of a second-story window. I explained how some bushes combined with a freshman who was in the wrong place at the wrong time broke my fall. I asked who came through the door, if not the police, to which he replied it was the law student he dated. He said he dazzled her with conversation and was barely able to escape. We have to do something to stop her, Sleepy Joe. I could see the look of concern on his face. Hey, speaking of which, the vampire girl was in the clock tower looking at you, plus I accidentally bumped into her, but I don't think she recognized me. The look of concern on his face became even more prominent. Sleepy Joe, we stopped a real-life werewolf in our hometown, and that means we can stop her as well. I took a long look at the Baron and waited for the punchline, but it never came. I firmly replied to him, "In turn, I think you may be a little close to this one, so I better take the lead." Surprised at my new cavalier attitude, he said, "Sleepy Joe, do you really think I want to be under the spell of some vampire girl looking to kill me?" To which I immediately replied, "Yes, sir. Yes, I do." I then reminded him that it was his dad that led the charge against our grade school principal and how his taste in women was akin to someone's taste for poison. That most of his girlfriends were either fully demon-possessed and extremely psychotic. I explained if he returned my shooting gimmick that I would fix her wagon. He reluctantly complied as he told me how little good shooting her would do. I actually didn't want to do that to the succubus phantom lady because according to the Baron's comic books, these type of jive turkeys only could be defeated by beheading, stakes in the heart or silver bullets. Suddenly I heard the voice president of my fraternity call my name, which annoyed me. How rude. I thought to myself that he would blatantly interrupt us in my own conversation. I checked the chambers of the gun before angry, yet politely excusing myself to speak with this idiot. "What's your problem, fella?" I towered over the short senior, prepared for whatever ignorant nonsense he decided to say. He began talking about pledges, then something about money, how I wasn't doing something right, missing their meetings. I patiently explained to him that I was completely uninterested in whatever sex rituals they were doing, that it would be in his best interest to scram like Pam before my shooting gimmick made jam. And with thoughts of how to muffle a shot from my gimmick in broad daylight to wipe this buffoon smile away. As I listened to the club's veep blabber about irrelevant bullshit in my mind, and then inevitably my eyes began to wander. They were drawn to the clock tower, where I saw the phantom ghost girl. I looked around for Baron, but he was dynamite out of sight. Annoyed and panicked at the sight of the hippie Dracula girl scanning the campus grounds like an eagle, I fired a few shots into the air and ran away with the crowd, blending into the chaos. I made it to my room on the third floor of my dorm, overlooking the courtyard, just in time to see the vampire hippie chick out of my window. She jumped all the way from the clock tower in the frenzied crowd and snatched one of the guys running. She grabbed what looked to be a mantle cover near a spooky statue and lifted it with one hand, dragging the poor student behind her as he struggled. She dove into the hole, pulling the poor sucker in with her. My heart pounded as I watched the mantle cover replace itself with a hole. All by itself, folks, I couldn't take much more. I clutched my chest and found it hard to breathe or see clearly. Just as the room began to spin, my mate suddenly kicked in the door to our room, yelling and holding a case of beer. Through the knock of his sudden and loud entry into our room after witnessing this supernatural witchwoman's escape made me pass out immediately. I woke to find him gone, but his presence was replaced by the good old Okie himself. I breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing my old pal Doss. He spun in the chair to the desk like a James Bond villain. He held up some trashy and old-looking book's pages towards me. He looked to be very pleased with his findings. All I saw was naked women sitting on rocks in the ocean waving at people sailing by in boats. Initially, it appeared to be, Doss, you picked a fine time to get excited about ancient pornography. Hey, look, Baron, I like a good smut magazine from time to time. As well, buddy. That said, my goodness, man, your girlfriend's the bride of Dracula, and this is what's on your mind. I'm not judging, but as your friend, I am a bit concerned. He looked at me with a puzzled look on his face, then looked at the book's pages he had presented me. He then gave me a very mean look and muttered some cuss words under his breath. This isn't a damn smut book, Sleepy Joe. It's a book on Greek mythology, and it's super duper old. It's still confused as to what any of this had to do with anything. I yawned and rolled back over. Pulling the covers over my head, I listened to his melodic voice as he read a story about some hot chicks that loved to sing to sailors as they passed by in their heat boats. The singing would somehow put them in a trance, and they'd sail on the rocks, killing the sailors who then were eaten by these women. Sure sounds like smut to me, Doss. My parents are friends of Larry Flint. Since you have found some new interest in filthy magazine, maybe I can get you a tour of his mansion. It's probably filled with prostitutes like in your smut book. Knowing he wouldn't let me sleep off the sheet terror I felt earlier, I got up and lit a Camel non-filter cigarette. Hey, Sleepy Joe, when did you start smoking? He asked. I replied, kind sir, that's my business, but who are these loose women, and what have they got to do with that hippie chick? Damn it, Joe, what's wrong with you? She's possibly one of them. I thought to myself that my old friend's child of madness was starting to rear its ugly face. As I contemplated the whole thing, we both heard scratching on the roof of my dorm. We both went to the window but saw nothing until the red-eyed, devil-filled girl appeared upside down on the other side of the glass with a screechy punch through it, grabbing at Doss. Luckily, a studying of comfort granted him lightning quick reflexes, which narrowly saved him. I pulled my gun and began firing at the girl. I hit her 4 times in the face and once in the head, sending her spiraling out of sight to the ground below. Her body made a sick and crunchy thud on the concrete. Screams could be heard and someone blowing a whistle. We quickly dashed downstairs to find she had again vanished. Well, Doss, since you're Colonel Hannibal from the B team, all of a sudden, what do you propose we do? What in the hell do you plan on doing with those little bit of guts you're putting into that bag? Maybe you shouldn't be messing around with this crime scene. Where in the hell did you see someone doing weird shit like this anyways? Well, okay then, tough guy, you can sit there and ignore me while you concentrate on playing with nasty shit if you want to, but I'm catching the first thing smoking out of this shitty town. I gotta get out before I'm forced to see her kill you, or she inevitably murders me. Papa, don't take no messin', it ain't me, babe. No, it ain't me she gonna kill. You hear me, Baron? Baron, goddammit, I'm talking to you. Listen me, damn it. Doss completely ignored me as he examined the crime scene as if he knew what he was looking at. Sleepy Joe, she couldn't have gotten far. We have to do something to warn everyone on campus. Upon hearing this, I pulled my gun to prepare to fire it into the night sky, but he quickly stopped me. Doss panicked and started looking around upon seeing this to grab my arm. Put that way, you crazy fool. The fuzz are coming this way. I looked and he was right. They asked us questions about what happened and did we see anything. I told them I didn't see nothing and called them coppers. Doss was a heavyweight contender for the biggest square of North America, so I unfortunately told them a story they didn't want to hear. The truth, the cops scolded us for being out at night with the shooting of the library and people going missing on campus. He then demanded we return to our dorms for the evening and only come out during the day for classes. I took a long drag of my Camel non-filter and blew a square in his face. Then I flickered the butt of my flavor-filled smoke into the other stupid copper's shirt pocket. I laughed as I briskly turned and walked away. Hey, Sleepy Joe, what's wrong with you, man? Before I could answer the Baron, I felt a sharp pain in the back of my head. Well, as it turns out, the old worrywart Doss was right after all. I should have left those stupid ugly coppers alone. They played an encore version of a Led Zeppelin drum solo on my head for a solid 8 minutes. There was blood in my ears and my vision was fading in and out, but I managed to hear one of those no-good coppers tell Doss to, and I quote, "Take your dummy friend home, or we will beat your head in and then kill him." Little did he know that's where I wanted to go anyways. Those stupid no-good coppers. Just like a true civilian, though, Doss carried me all the way up the 3 flights stairs to my dorm room without protest. He knocked on the door, which was answered by my idiot roommate. Doss was running low on patience and asked, as kindly as someone could who had just carried the dead weight of a man over 6 feet and 200 pounds up 3 flights stairs, "Hey, dude, move so I can set him down." Doss only asked once more before he tossed me into my roommate, which sent us both crashing to the floor. I regained consciousness sometime the next morning before class, but when I went out to the courtyard, I saw the entire student body and staff protesting something near the school's entrance. I pushed my way through the crowd to see that the National Guard was building a fence around the whole university. What I could gather from the chants and ruckus was a rare virus had been released within the school, and we were all to be quarantined for the weekend. "Hey, you no good coppers, you can't lock us in here, you dirty sons of bitches. Open that gate right now, you fools. There's some damn phantom of the upper hippie ghost girl in here with us. Hey, copper, she'll kill us all. Hey, copper, open it now. You can't do this. God damn you. All of you. I hate all you no good coppers." Well, these crazy sons of bitches. If I go to hell, I'm taking 1 or 2 of them with me. I'm afraid to go by myself. They're always trying to denigrate us black people, locking us in pens like they did our ancestors. The dirty coppers. Where the hell is Doss at while all this craziness is just busting loose? As I was joining my classmates and the university staff in protesting our imprisonment, I saw what at first I believed was some kind of kite or balloon in the morning sun, but then it landed in the clock tower. When the red eyes began glowing and watching the crowd, I knew it was her. Of course, Doss was missing in action per usual. With all the murmuring to himself he was doing lately, I thought that maybe he was beginning to lose his bananas. But just then a Batman-type figure on the roof of the cafeteria began running from building to building towards the hippie ghost chick. "Doss! Hey, Doss! Everyone get down! There she is! Run for it if you value your life! Someone help! My damn heart is exploding in my chest! Hey, help us! She's in the clock tower with red glowing eyes! Oh shit, someone grab the National Guard in that tank!" The masked person moved swiftly and met the vampire girl with a mighty hand. Unfortunately, though, he was ripped in half like those Christian strong men do phone books. The bones and torn flesh made a sickening sound as she threw the remains into the bewildered onlookers. Then there was fear and pandemonium. Since the coppers weren't going to help us, and Doss is seemingly dressed up like a dollar store Batman to launch a full frontal assault on his ex-girlfriend, only to be unceremoniously ripped in half, there was only one reasonable and rational thing left for me to do. I took one last look at reality itself and placed the gimmick against my own head. Just like clockwork, I heard Bob Dylan's hit song "Mr. Tambourine Man" begin to play over the loudspeakers. As I heard his nasally and annoying voice, I knew that this was the right thing to do. Just as the harmonica part was about to start, I heard the ghost of my dear friend D. Doss call me an idiot. It scared me just as much as the gruesome sight of his ex massacring him. Then came his unique delivery of cuss words. "Oh, no, 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 please, please plague me no further, ghost of D. Doss. I am sorry. I promise I'll not kill myself. I will move to Oklahoma and read the book you like so much called the Holy Bible. Please stop haunting me. Holy shit, I am about to have a stroke." Just then I heard an explosion that came from underneath the school. I quickly put my gimmick away and looked around at the pure bedlam that was the student body as they ran around in a panic frenzy. It reminded me of the ant farm my father gave me as a child, how I would place them on the family dryer and pretended that an earthquake was devastating their homes. I then sailed them insurance policies just in case of such future tragedies, only to flim-flam them into a high interest rate for their fire coverage. The screaming crowd scattered like roaches that I saw whenever I worked at the swimming pool and would go visit black folks. These weren't black folks like the Barron's family, though. Barron's family had a house similar to mine, and my parents said that's why we could be friends. Anyways, what was I saying? Was I talking about whenever his dad helped us kill the werewolf? Yeah, that's right. Then the Barons that gave us rifles and said, follow him. And no, wait. The girl, sorry folks, I got confused. Anyways, yeah, that stupid girlfriend of these was a mean bitch that he should have dumped when he saw she was shithouse crazy, and none of this would have happened. Maybe it wouldn't have. Actually, she'd still be a demon vampire hippie chick, so yes, it would have still happened. That owl vampire girl threw that boy and struck a stupid copper with his body, killing him instantly. The panic sent everyone scattering, but my roommate and I were mesmerized by the sheer madness of seeing her in the clock door. We watched her dip back into the building and emerge again with another student.